this webinar, and we're going to be talking about text expanders today. I hope you're going to find this tutorial helpful. We may have some people who've never really seen what text expanders do before, and some of you may have been used to using one for a while now. Hopefully this short webinar will be able to give you a few tips and skills to help you get started with being able to use this wonderful resource. Before we do that, if you don't know my voice by now, my name is Anne-Marie and I'm one of the trainers here at TalentMed, and it's always nice to know who you're talking to. So those of you who don't know the old face by now, there it is. We're very excited to have you join us for this discussion, and I'm sure that most of you have heard me admit to being a dinosaur before, but having been in the industry for 45 years. But in that time, I've seen technology move at a tremendous pace. As medical transcriptionists, we also need to move with it. As the demands of our industry increase and the pressure is placed on us to increase our productivity, I've been using a text expander for about 8 years now, and quite honestly, I can tell you I'd be lost without it. So I'm really happy to share what I know with you here at this webinar, and hopefully you'll get all fired up to start your own. If you have any questions as we go, as I've said before, pop your hand up if you want to speak to me, or write your question in the type box question area there, and we'll stop and talk about what we need to as we go. First of all, what is a text expander? Well, it's a software program that links to any platform that you use on your computer. It assists you in typing words and phrases faster by using snippets. I'll explain more about the functionality of it shortly, but as you can see, there are a lot of software packages out there that claim to be able to do this for you. Some are better than others, some are free, and some you have to pay for. Some only work with Windows and some only work with Macs. So it's a good idea to do a bit of your own research to which one is going to suit you best. I'm not advocating any one over the other, as technology is much more advanced in this type of thing than I am. So I'm just going to show you what a text expander can do, and then you can make your own mind up as to which one suits you best. Just a word of warning though, if you want the functionality of your text expander to be fully customizable to your personal requirements, then you get what you pay for. Okay, Instant Text is the program that I've been using since 2010. And so I'm going to show you what I know and how to use it, because I know how to use it. Most other text expanders will do the same thing in some form or another, but we just don't have time to go through each individual software to show you the difference. So bear with me while I run through the basics for this one. Those of you who've not taken up the advantage of the 3 months trial that we offered you in Block 2 of your course will not have seen the program or know very little about it. I'll be providing an overview of what Instant Text is and how it can benefit you. Some of the information I'm providing you is from the Fatali website, and this is a great resource for tutorials and how-tos if you want to explore it, and that's the website address there if you want to jot that down. The web address is there, and also be careful, it is an American website, and most of the terminology is in American spelling, which is not our preferred method. So anything that you're using from there, you do need to edit it. But it will give you the information that you need. So let's get started from the beginning, so hopefully it'll all start to make sense. Text expanders allow you to abbreviate your typing by simply using a few letters to completely write a whole sentence, a phrase, or even a paragraph of text. If you have existing word lists, documents, reference websites, etc., you can create glossaries that will help you with your most frequent frequently used words and phrases. You don't have to memorize codes with this system, as you can actually see the suggested text on your screen. The predictive text component of the program will also anticipate what you're going to type next and make suggestions for you. As we're looking at this program from a medical transcription point of view, then obviously we'll look at the benefits for us, with difficult medical jargon being easy to be saved and used over and over. The speed at which you gain from using this program is also evident after a while. I can tell you that a survey I did a while ago when I was working for an MT organisation revealed that 35% of MTs said that it saved 30% of keystrokes, and 15% of them said that it saved up to 50% of keystrokes. So when you're talking about productivity equaling money, it's definitely something to consider. The pros and cons listed here are fairly self-explanatory, and I'll give you a few seconds to read through them while I babble on a bit. If you're not familiar with some of the words there, we'll briefly touch on what commands and macros are later in the presentation, but these would be fairly advanced processes for down the track a little. We're starting with the basics here today. The important pro is that you build it to your requirements. You're not complying with someone else's way of doing things. You can do it your way. The other thing to remember on this page is that it does take time and it can slow you down a bit initially. But the goal is that it helps you type faster and in turn increase your income when you get to the workplace. And this is why I'm trying to encourage you to set it up as one of your resources throughout this course early, because when you get to the workplace, you want to spend your time making money and not spending hours setting things up. In the survey that I spoke about earlier, the pool of MTs that was surveyed said that 30% said it took less than a week to master, and 45% of them said it took less than a month. Now, I've spoken to a lot of students about text expanders, and they say, oh yes, I've seen it there and I haven't used it, it's expired, I didn't have time, I'm too busy, it took too long to set it up. Well, let me tell you, when you get to the workplace and you're complaining about not making enough money, this is going to be one of the main reasons why. So let's get started. The best solution is to go with the free trial program that we've offered you, and to use it over the ensuing 3 months before you actually get to need to purchase it. You can visit the website that I've put on the opening page for more information. And let me urge you to begin sooner rather than later. Start by using it for a little while each day and slowly work your way up to using it full time. The second and third solutions are not what I would recommend, but I know that some students are doing it, waiting till you finish the course and doing it between graduation and working. That's great, that's fine, you've got time to do it, that's really good. Not bothering at all really is doing yourself out of something really useful, because typing every single keystroke is just not the way it's supposed to happen. Okay, so this is an overview of what we're going to discuss about the program, and we'll get to the more detailed functions later on. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the complex things today. I just want to go through the basics, but I will touch on the more advanced points to show you what the capacity of this very powerful program is. And if there's enough interest after this webinar, then perhaps we can move into a more advanced one a little later. It's up to you. I'm doing this for you, and I only do it in response to feedback that we get. So if you want to give me some feedback so that I can tailor any of these tutorials, or if you've got an idea for another tutorial that you'd like me to do, then please give us the feedback, because we're here to fulfill what you want to know. Okay, so we're looking at words alone. here, and abbreviating them by typing just a couple of letters can save you so much time with long and difficult words. With single words, you need to start typing the word itself in the correct first letter, and then you'll start to see, and I'll show you how it appears on the bottom of the screen later, you'll start to see the various suggestions underneath appear. This example is showing the various ways that you can type the word abbreviation. So I can type the word as it's spelt I can start typing ABB and it will show up with the rest of the word. I can type the first letter and follow it with another letter within the word, and it'll still show it up. And I can do what they call the ABCZ format, which is a common term that a lot of people that use text expanders use, and that's the first three letters of the word followed by the last letter of the word. Each of those combinations gives the same result. You can also do it for long, difficult words like gastroesophageal, and you can notice there I've got the two O's and a hyphen there. There's no, just one O and an E. We're using British English spellings here, ladies and gents, and I've picked up so many people spelling that wrong in their assessments, so take a good look at that. That's how it's supposed to be spelt. Putting words in like this ensures that you remember the hyphen and the British English spelling. So it's also great for those words with the funny accents and symbols as well, like Waldenstrom, and you can see that that's got that funny O on top of it. You don't have to take your hands off the keyboard to find that special characters list and work out the keyboard shortcut for it, which can take another while to find. So with phrases, the whole thing starts to make even more sense as to why you put to use the program. It's going to save you heaps of time with the number of keystrokes that you'll save. Remember, up to 50%. Phrase searches are mainly the first letter of each word, unless you choose a different way of doing it. But this is the easiest way, and this is the way that the program actually automatically does it for you. As you don't have to remember any codes this way, all you've got to think about is what's the first letter of thank you for referring this patient is TYFR. With only 3 or 4 keystrokes, you've got the whole sentence there in your text. When you're working in the workplace, this is going to become very handy. If you've got a doctor who starts his or her letters the same way every time, and believe me, they do, then you can shortcut the first couple of sentences by using these sorts of commands. I'm not going to show you how to do that right now, as we're only here to show you the basics, but the highlighted words that you see are where the system stops to allow you to type in words in a sentence like this. Thank you for referring Jane to the oncology clinic. The doctor starts that letter the same in every situation, but obviously Jane can be John or Joe or whoever. So you can actually command the program to stop so that you can enter that information in, then start again to finish off the sentence that you've put in there. Really, really handy for down the track. But as I say, we'll just go to the basics for now. Okay, so when you enter your letters, sometimes you'll see both a single word and a phrase at the same time, and you can see the little instant text bar underneath, and this is what your screen would look like if you've loaded instant text, and you can start to see the words appearing there as you're typing. You can choose which one of them that you wish to use by clicking on the marker keys. Now, the marker keys can be customized to whatever you want. The default is the semicolon for a phrase and a square bracket, either the left or right square bracket for a word. So put simply, when you've typed gourd, both of the options will appear. So you don't want to, it's another keystroke for you to click on caps lock, So if you're just typing GORD in lowercase, you've already put it in your instant text to capitalize it for you. So you can do it quickly in that way, or you've got the full sentence of gastroesophageal reflux disease. So you can choose which one you want. Okay, so custom glossaries. What I mean by that is creating your own, so that you know how to add a word or a phrase yourself to your own specific glossary without having to rely on an American-based one. Don't get me wrong, the preloaded ones are great, and a really good start if you are time poor and you want to get going with it. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying don't do it, but what you do need to do is you need to go in and make sure that you're editing the American words for British English ones. And honestly, that could just take you just about as long to do that as it is to create your own. So I'll just quickly explain what they are, and then I'll show you how to make your own later when you, and then you can decide. So glossaries, as you know, are resource databases that we get all our words and phrases from. Whether you've created your own word list through the course so far, or they're termed as glossaries too. The reason that we have custom glossaries is to narrow down the program search for your appropriate text. So if you have one big global glossary with everything in it, it may give you too many options for what it is that you're looking for. So by creating separate glossaries, say for specialties or for specific doctors, then you're narrowing down the possibility and therefore making the choices more efficient in the screen that you see. So in the screenshot above, you can see that the preloaded glossaries are here on the left. That's what you get with when you order instant text. They're already part of the program, which is fabulous. And on the right-hand side are some of my custom-made glossaries. And we'll create some glossaries later. Okay. Sometimes you'll have more than one abbreviation or a code for several different things. And if you need to choose which one you want, as you start typing, you'll see that there's a list of suggestions that appear in the bottom of your screen. And you can also set it for the side or top if you wish. I think the bottom is better for me. I just can see it better in my peripheral vision. It's less distracting for me anyway, but it's a matter of choice. You'll see in this screenshot that the system's suggesting 4 different options to what has been typed in so far. The default is the highlighted with the dark blue at the top, and it's always the first line. But what if you wanted the third line? All you need to do is type the number 3, and it will highlight the third line for you. Or you can take your hand off the keyboard and use your mouse to click on the third line. Or if you don't want to take your fingers off the keyboard, you can just simply use the Shift key, and that will actually move the highlight down to whichever row it is that you want. And then you just press your colon key. You'll also notice that I didn't have to type all the letters in the code. The code's there on the left-hand side. And if I just typed IST, it's coming up with I saw this patient today. So I'm actually starting to abbreviate the abbreviations. So while we're on this, this is what I mean by customizing your glossaries. As you could have 10 or 20 various options for these sentences, and you want to narrow them down to be specific and easier to find. Otherwise, the text expander screen would be bigger than the screen itself. So with these 4 sentences, by just typing ITP and a colon for the top line or a number for one of the other lines, 4 keystrokes have saved anywhere from between 20 to 54 keystrokes. So when you're starting out with a text expander, have a think about what you mainly type. Is it 3 or 4 different specialties, or is it a mixture of heaps? How many glossaries do you think you might need? Some specialties, like haematology and oncology, for example, have very similar terminology and drugs. So I have them both in the one glossary. My respiratory glossary has sleep clinic and infectious diseases and the TB clinic in there as well, that sort of thing. So when you're talking about compiling glossaries here, you're putting information into your glossary from some sort of reference source. You can copy any sort of document or website information into your text expander, and it'll automatically compile the glossary for you. Again, we'll touch on this in more detail later. No matter what program you're using, whether it's Word, Excel, Outlook, webmail, or a website, or the MT program that the MT organization you're working for uses, the text expander will dock to it and show the advisory bar at the bottom of your screen. So when I say dock to it, the program that you're working with, and in this case on the screenshot it's Word, you'll know if you're docked because of the circle with the arrow will be green or red. So you can see here where it says instant text, you see that there's a green circle there. That means that it is docked. If it's red, then it's not. So we need to fix that. Okay. By clicking on the up arrow, if it's red, so you click on that up arrow there, and that will bring a pop-up and it'll ask you what you want to do. And you can see here that you can change how many advisory lines, and this is what I mean by advisory lines. We've got 7 here, and you can change the number of lines depending on how many you want. I normally only do about 3 or 4 so that I've got enough room on the screen to be able to see what I'm typing. You need to make sure that the tick box is ticked at the top. Here, see where it says use instant text with this application. It'll tell you what application it's trying to dock to. If that's not ticked, then your dot's going to be red. You want that ticked so that it's green, and then it will work for you. The other way of resizing these advisory lines here is by automatically just clicking on here, and you'll get the 2 arrows appear and you can drag it down. And you can also, depending on the program, now I can have 7 lines for Word, and if I go to a website and it goes Google Chrome or whatever there, I can just have 2 or 3 and change it to 2 or 3. So it'll actually remember I'm in Word, I've got 7, I'm in webmail, I've got 2, so you can customize how many lines you want to see depending on what it is that you're doing. Okay, so now text expanders will work immediately that you start typing. You'll see the advisory at the bottom of your text with the highlighted glossary being the subject of what you're currently doing. And what I mean by that, and I'll show you with the mouse. I'll just hide that. See, I've got tutorials up here, so it changes color. These are all in my glossaries list at the moment on the screen. They're active glossaries, but this is the one that is actually being used at the moment, is the white highlight. Okay, so we've taken in a lot so far, haven't we? And not really done much, but I just wanted to give you the overview. So don't worry if it's too much information too quickly. We are recording this and it will be posted on Talent Hub so that you can view it as many times as you like until you understand it fully. I'm going to just give a little break now while we review what we've done so far and just see if there's any questions before we go into the technical aspects of actually how to make it work. So we've gone through how you can increase your productivity by up to 50% once you get this working for you correctly. We've gone through how they work, the benefits of using a text expander, and the very small reasons why not to. And the program can cater to whatever requirements you have of it. And for the role of the MT, having separate glossaries will certainly help you. So if you've got any questions, start writing them down or or put your hand up, and we'll go through them shortly. We'll just have a little look, see if there's anything so far. Hi, Mary. I can see that you've got your hand up, Mary. You're happy for me to unmute you? You're now unmuted, Mary. What's your question? You there, Mary?
Yeah.
Hi, Mary. What's your question? Are you there, Mary? Can you hear me? I think Mary's typing. Do you want to ask me a question, Mary? Hello, Mary.
Hang on. Sorry.
Do you want to ask me a question, Mary?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to mute you again, Mary, because all I can do is hear you typing. You're not talking to me. So if you want to type your question in the question box, I'll answer it later. Okay, anybody else with their hand up that wants to talk to me? Hello, Robin. I'm just going to unmute you.
Hi,
Hello,
Anne-Marie.
Robin. How are you? How can I help you?
I do have a question. You know how, like when I'm doing the, I'm using the text expander now in doing my transcripts. However, if I click, like say if I've typed in a word wrong, like misspelt it, so I'll go back to, I'll backspace to correct it, or move my mouse and click back onto where I've spelt it wrong, like a simple word. The actual text expander disappears from the screen. So then I've got to go back into my taskbar, double click on it to bring it back up.
Okay, so that is an inherent issue with Google Chrome, and I'll show you how to do that when we go through the practical side of it at the end of the webinar, when I'm actually showing you how to do stuff. You need to resize the Google Chrome frame so that when you start typing into Google Chrome, the instant text bar will disappear. It's still active, but it's actually behind the Google Chrome frame. So we need to resize it so that you can constantly see it. And I'll show you how to do that later. And I'll just write that down so I don't forget, Robin, and we'll show you that in a second. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That was my answer. I mean, my question is answered.
Okay. Lovely. Thanks, Robin. I'm just going to mute you again now. So just pop your hand down for me, please.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll talk again soon. Okay, anybody else with their hand up? Okay, we'll just see if there's any questions. I can't seem to get the test sound to stop playing over your voice. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Don't know why that would be. I'm sorry, Alicia. I really don't know why that would be. Sorry. Hopefully you won't have that problem when you get the recording. Okay, Heather, I've got two monitors set up. I can have the expander in the second monitor, or does it have to dock under the application? It will dock under whatever application that you're working on at the time. And if you're using two screens, and you're actively typing in one screen, the text expander will follow you. If you're going into another screen and start typing in it, the text expander will follow you again. If you're not seeing that, Heather, then I would say that it's the same issue as Robin's, that if you're in Chrome, you need to resize the frame, and I'll show you how to do that later on. Leanne, how do you have to be online to do your glossary list, or is it something you can do offline? I was asking due to travelling, as it was something I could do while I'm travelling. It's a great pastime while your husband's driving and you're sitting in the front seat, Leanne. You can definitely do it offline. If you've got glossaries in your computer somewhere, so you've saved word lists and things like that, Instant Text is on your local computer as well. There's nothing online about either of those. The only time you need to be online is if you're copying things from websites, etc. Then obviously you need an internet connection for that. But if you're just setting up your glossaries, you can definitely do it offline. There's no problem there. Okay, let's have a look here. Next one down. Sorry, daughter sick. Okay, that's fine. Started out with a Mac and now using Firefox unsuccessfully. Now have a laptop. Can I take advantage of the text expander offer for the laptop? If you haven't already signed up for the free trial, yes, you can. Just go back and have a look at it, Mary. The link's there. If you can't get back to the link, then just send us an email and we'll sort that out for you. Oh, good. I'm glad you're back with us, Alicia. Thank you. Okay, so I've seemed to answered everything so far. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go back into the presentation now, and we'll have another break later on and see if there's any further questions as we go further. Okay, so let's get started and talk about how we do it all. We need to create one main glossary to start with, and the MedStart glossary is the preloaded one that comes with Instant Text, and it's pretty comprehensive, but again, beware, it is American. To take a look at what the glossaries are and what you already have, when you downloaded the program, you'll see that here it's got local disk C, and it automatically creates its own heading of Instant Text, and then it has a sub folder of glossaries. If you click into that, you'll see that it's already loaded with all of these preloaded glossaries to start with, and you can go through them, whichever one you think that you might like to use more than others, and start editing them. Now, just a word of warning, if you're going to download the drugs one, that's great. It's an American one though. You need to check every single drug with an Australian drug database. A lot of people sending in assessments at the moment with American named brand named drugs that aren't available in Australia. So it's tricky. And it's time consuming, but it certainly is something you need to do. You will get pinged for it in the workplace. We are only supposed to be using Australian drugs. Okay, so you need to check that, but it is a good website, and but you just need to verify the information's correct. Okay, so now we can start our own glossaries, but this is where the preloaded ones are. Okay, so starting with your own glossary, it's going to be blank to start with, and entering your own words in from day one. So on this right-hand section here, we're going to right-click on the word glossaries, and that will actually open up a advisory bar here, and we're going to click on New, and that will create a new glossary. Make sure that you have a look at the line here, and when it first appears, it's got an asterisk .glo because it's a blank glossary, and I've just named this general and clicked on save, and it will automatically then go to the bottom of your thing here. General will be in this list here. If you've got information that you want to put into that glossary from somewhere else, if you've created a list, then you can import the glossary. The program will automatically incorporate it into single words and phrases for you, dependent on the list. So to do this, you right-click on the word phrases bar here, this grey word, right-click on that, and then click Importer, and there's the importer there at the top. Okay, this will then give you all different aspects of what type of text you can bring in, and we're going to talk about a text file at this stage. So this one here, text file. And this will take you to your computer's directory, because you're saying you want a text file. It's going to say, okay, where do you want me to get the text file from? So it'll go into your directory, and you can basically choose whichever directory it is you want to incorporate into your glossary, and you just double click on it to import it. You confirm the name. Depending on what you want to name it, confirm that the name is correct that you want to have, and click on save, and you're done. And then the conversion of the glossary will happen in an instant for you, and it will all be put into that glossary for you. It's pretty magic, isn't it? Okay, so now to get other glossaries into your working screen. You'll actually notice if you're importing a glossary that it automatically appears on this work screen. However, if you want more on there, then I'll show you how to do that now. These are all the glossaries that I've put on the main typing screen. I work with 15 different ones, and obviously I can't have all 15 of them on there, or I wouldn't have much space to see the text on the screen. So I limit myself as to how much I can see depending on the program and what I'm actually doing at the time. I've got 7 lines here because that gives me a wide choice of suggested text, which we'll talk about later. But I'm only going to see 7 of these specialty glossaries. That's not a problem though. When I scrunch it down to only 7 lines, you'll see that the slide bar appears here with the red circle there, so that you can move up and down to view the ones that you can't see. And if you want to make any of those active, you just click into it, and instead of it being dermatology active, then the number 8 will be active if that's the one you want. Okay. Okay, so how do I get them there in the first place? Okay, so let's show you how. You'll now see that I've deleted all the specialties from my glossary here, and there's only one there. The only reason that there's one there is because it won't work unless there's something in there. So now I'm going to right click on the line under cardio, and it will bring up this screen here when you right click and you click on open. This will then open up the glossary list in your directory that I showed you before, and we're going to double click on dermatology glossary from the glossary list, and now you'll see here it is. It's appeared in the list there. And I repeat this process for all the specialties that I want to view. So again, I can see 7 on my main screen, and I've added all the rest of them as I need to. I can change the order in which they appear on my screen as well by right-clicking on the glossary list again, and this will bring up this list here. It's a bit blurred, I'm sorry, and select Reorder Active Glossary List. So if you click on that, it'll actually give you all the lists in your glossary that you've got, and you can move them up or down depending on. So if you want to have it in alphabetical order, depends on how OCD you are. You want them in alphabetical order, you can put them in alphabetical order. If you want them in priority as to which one you use the most at the top, then you do that. It's really up to you. When you're happy with the order, you just click OK down here, and then you're all done. So now we're going to show you how to add text into the glossaries. And the most important thing to remember here is the reliability and the accuracy of what you put into instant text is what you're going to get out of it. So this is paramount to your accuracy. It'll only give you back the information that you put in it. And as I said to you, if you're going to get out the information that the preloaded glossaries have put in, then a lot of it's not going to be right because it's American, so beware. So be careful that you're correcting the American spellings and that your sources are reliable. When entering drug names and doses, for example, obviously the most accurate way of doing this is to copy it from the source itself. We're going to copy Lorastine into the glossary named drugs. So you can see that I've got the drugs glossary as the active glossary because it's white. And by clicking on the Alt button and then the plus sign, so I've highlighted the word Lorastine. Yeah, you can see that. Now clicking on the Alt button and the plus sign on your keyboard, we're going to then pop into our text expander, and you'll see that once you do that, you get this add glossary entry pop-up appear, and it's automatically put it in as Lorastine, and it's already, in short, given you the default code of L. That's pretty simple. So when you start typing LOR, it will show up on your thing. Now, this display as area, this is information if I wanted to remind myself of what it means or what it is, or Lorastine is the brand name, Loratadine is the generic name, and it's an antihistamine. So when if that's something that I want to remember, and you can put any information you like in here, but it's at a glance, you can then see what it is. Okay, so you can then click OK, and that will then go into your glossary. Okay. So here, I'm also going to start copying in the dosage. Now, I might just have to use Lorastine as the word on its own in some dictations, but they also might say 10 milligrams. Now, 10 milligrams is only 5 keystrokes. It's actually 6 because you've got the space between Lorastine and the number 1. So it's 6 keystrokes, but I can save 6 keystrokes by adding this to the text expander still under the name Lorastine with the code of L only. When you've got Lorastine 10 milligrams in there, it will actually do L1M because it automatically recognizes it as a phrase. So I'm just going to delete the 1 and the M and keep it as L, so that when I'm typing Lorastine, it will give me the option of just Lorastine as the word or Lorastine 10 milligrams. So I can just dump either one of those in. So it's really handy if you've got a drug that's got 3 or 4 different doses in it. You're getting it, this screen, by the way, is from MIMS. So if you go to MIMS or TGA, MIMS is a website that you have to pay for, so, and it's not cheap, but at the same time, it is very reliable and it's updated regularly. The one that I'm telling people through the course, as you know, is either PBS or TGA. TGA is my favorite at the moment because because that really is the Therapeutic Goods Administration is the government website that legislates all drugs in Australia. So if it's not in there, then it's not in Australia, and you know it's not going to get much better than that. So you don't have to pay for a MIM subscription at this point in time. Some MT organisations do ask that you do, because they want the source of information to be the same for all MTs. So that's something that you need to tackle down the track. But for now, in your learning exercises, TGA's the one that I recommend. So you can copy the doses from there, what I'm saying. And so if they dictate Lorastine 15 milligrams and you see in MIMS that it doesn't actually come in 15 milligrams, then you know it's an error on the doctor's part. And yes, surprise, surprise, they do make mistakes. And we then query it with QA to say, look, I'm sorry, Lorastine doesn't come in 15 milligrams. And it could well be that they say, well, you've got to chop the tablet in half and take 15. That's fine, but at least we've alerted that it could be a potential something that needs to be looked at. Okay. Alrighty. So the next one is to take the sample of digoxin. Digoxin's got quite a few different variations to it. Digoxin is a generic name, so it's got a small d. You'll see that I've got a digoxin with a capital D in there because, funnily enough, there are some clients that actually prefer capital letters for all drug names, whether they're brand or generic. So we have to comply with what the client-specific instructions are. But generally, it is a generic name, so it's a small d. And these are all the different types of drugs that you can have for digoxin. So I've got to go to MIMS or to TGA and go and find out what those drug doses are, or I find them out once, put it in my text expander, and they're there forever. I don't need to keep going back there. Some doctors dictate digoxin in milligrams, and some of them dictate them in micrograms. So again, I've formatted it depending on what it is that's being dictated. So it's correct, and I can see at a glance and enter it into the text as dictated without stopping and having to go and check it again. Okay, so it's another time saver for you. There are lots of other ways of making glossary entries, and you'll work out what best suits your style. However, the most easy to remember is the first letter of each word theory. You can have whole paragraphs transcribed by clicking on a few letters for this type of thing. If you do the same doctors all the time, you'll know what I mean. And they become very repetitive in the way that they format their letters. This is an example of one doctor who does his examination paragraphs exactly the same no matter what. The only thing you need to change is the variations in the weight, the blood pressure, and the pulse. So all the text is there, and all you've got to do is fill in the blanks. So it's depending on the software, that can be just a single keystroke click, or it can be a command in instant text that you can set up for it to do that. So you can see all I'm doing is typing in weight, pulse, and blood pressure, and I've typed that whole sentence. Okay, glossary entries that have difficult spellings or have characters in them, for example, that Waldenstrom I did before, or Scrogens here, you put in with one letter as a short form. So Scrogens disease, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but and it sounds good. Scrogens syndrome in short form is just the S. So I've taken out the SS and just made it S in the short form, so that when I start typing it, I know that it's a weird spelling, so it'll come up as I type it. And if I don't type the O and it doesn't recognize the funny O, I could type the last letter or an N or something like that, and it'll still come up. I often doubt myself when it comes to the drugs like cefalexin and cefazolin and things like that, because of the PH and the F, and it's absolutely impossible to know which it is that they're talking about, because some of them are brand names with an F and some of them are generic names with a PH. So if you've got them in there into your text expander, you can work it out that cefalexin is the generic version with the small c. You can program instant text to perform commands as you're typing as well. For example, YOF brings up an entry that has some code attached to it, and you'll see what I mean by the code is here I've got command and backspace, and they're the codes that you enter in. And this is, as I say, probably more for an advanced webinar down the track, but I'm just showing you what it does. YOF can bring you into actually transcribing the year-old fellow, year-old female, etc., with the hyphens as the style guides recommend between each of them. And here are some other helpful glossary entries. I can actually put in the command and the backspace here for % predicted. Now, the reason I've got the backspace here is because they dictate, this is for respiratory, by the way, and you're talking about predicted airways and vital force capacities and things like that. It's PPD for % predicted. Command backspace takes the backspace back so that the % sign is straight after the number. So if it's 15%, when you go 15 space and then you type PPD, you want to get rid of that space. So the command is taking you back, deleting the space and putting the % sign and the word predicted in there. Okay, when you've got a month-old boy, again, it's taking the backspace, the blank space out and putting the hyphen in there for month-old boy. And you can see what I mean, year-old gentleman, girl, pack years smoking, that sort of thing. So it's really handy with these commands that you can work that in as well. Okay, another excellent feature is the includes section, and what this means is that you can have more than one glossary combined in the one. For example, I can have numerous glossaries contributing to my dermatology glossary without having to put the words into each separate one so that you can see them all. The dermatology glossary will be the primary glossary, and I'll show you the others after the entries in your main glossary. So in order to have your includes is the entries will show up, and this one just has MedStart at the moment, but there's many useful glossaries preloaded, and whichever one you think will be helpful, you can look through them and see what entries inside each one, and you'll see the include section on the bottom left. So here we've got the MedStart one at the moment. That's the only one that's in there, but I want to add another one. You open up the glossary detail of what the glossaries are. The only one there's the MedStart, but we'll see, add one now and see how we go. So first of all, we click on the Add Includes sign there that's circled in red. And this will take me to where all my other glossaries are. Again, it's in this directory that I showed you before. And I'm going to add the drugs glossary in there by double clicking on it. So double click and it will automatically go in. And you'll see on here, now underneath the MedStart, we now have the drugs glossary in there. Okay, so when I click OK on that, it closes it now back to the glossary viewer. And you'll see that the MedStart now also includes drugs. Okay, now this is my dermatology glossary, and again it's the primary glossary is the top one that's highlighted, and I'm including all of these into my drugs glossary. So you can see dermatology at the top because there's a lot of dermatology terminology that's also represented in other specialties, and rather than me duplicating everything, I'm just going to put in the other specialties that are included in dermatology. Sometimes oncology and surgery are quite often part of dermatology, obviously because of melanomas and things like that. So you'll see another glossary here called DermNZ. Now, I was clever enough to do this from the actual website. They've got a really nice glossary in DermNZ website, and I converted that glossary from the website into a glossary for Instant Text. So it's really good to do something like that once you get used to how it works. So the order in which these glossaries are is the order in which that they appear on your advisory. So for all the derm terms will appear before the oncology terms, and all the oncology terms will appear before the drugs terms and the surgery terms and so on. Okay, so if you wanted to reorder those in any way, again, you've got the up and the down key here to move them around if you want to. Okay. Now, having said that, and you don't have to actually create any codes, here are some codes that I did create, and mainly because I think there's some functionality for having your own codes as well as the program created ones. So here's a table which shows you some of the entries in my glossaries that I've invented a code for. Even though Instant Text works best with the first letter for each word most of the time, I also find that there's some easier ways of doing this when I use codes too. These are some of the ones that can help you if you don't have a numeric keypad, for example, to be able to do the shortcut keys for special characters, so you can put the symbols into your text easily. Okay. There's a couple of other codes that I use for marking assessments as well, and you'll see that some of you may have received some of this feedback before in different assessments. Well, I haven't typed it all out. It's all in my Instant Text. So here's a couple of the ones that I'm using. I have a scoring glossary, which I use when I'm doing a lot of feedback to a student. And again, you can see how much time it's saving me with the number of keystrokes on the left, and the text that's actually going into the document on the right. Okay, so, well, we're almost there. Thanks for sitting through my rambling. I hope I haven't put you all to sleep by now. For those of you still awake, there is a reward. If you haven't seen them already, I've put together a group of word lists separated by specialties to make your life easier a little, and you'll find them in the Talent Hub knowledge base at the web link here. You can also find it by visiting the site and clicking on the Hub section and just searching in the search field for word lists. You need a copy of the word lists and save them to a notepad file on your computer, and then you can import them into your text expanders as I showed you previously in the webinar. The other website here is the Instant Text website, which you can download their manual, and that will help you with lots of other tips and tricks as well. Okay, so summarising the webinar, we've touched on the basics. We've hopefully convinced you that it's something worthwhile that will increase your productivity. We've shown you how to do the basics with lots of examples, how to start setting up your glossaries and commands, etc. So now we'll just go through and see if there's any more questions that we want to ask, and see who's got their hands up. If you've got your hands up and you want to speak to me, that's great. If you've got, let me just get it up here so I can see who's doing what. Okay, Vinda has got her hand up. I don't know. I'll just click and unmute you, Vinda. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I don't have a question.
Oh, well,
Hi,
your hand is up, Vinda. Can you please put...
Was it?
Put your hand down, darling.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right,
no
then.
problem. Okay. Anybody else got any questions they want to talk to me about? No hands up. Okay, so let's go through the written questions and see if there's any. Okay, for the Laurestine section, what was the website that you recommended again for us to check for drug and drug doses information? Okay, let me just go into my Word here. Okay, and I'll just show you a little trick. This is in my instant text, and I go TGA, and I'm just going to press my colon key, and there is the TGA website there. So I hope you can see that okay. So it's TGA. This is the search field, the direct website. So I don't know if you can copy that completely off the screen there. Anyone that wants it, I can email it to you. All right. Okay, so we'll just go back to the webinar now. When you do an included glossary, this is Ellen. Hello, Ellen. When you do an included glossary, do they come up in your categories list, and does it look different in the list so that you can tell that it's an included glossary? No, it doesn't come up as any different. Again, I'll just go back to Word and I'll just show you. And you can see my, okay, so you can see my instant text here. If I go into diploma, for example, you can see I've got everything in here, all the includes of emergency, sutures, cardio, or derm, all of them are in there, okay? But it doesn't look any different to anybody else's there, okay? If I click into my support, all it is support, so it just doesn't give me anything else. So you can't really tell. You have to double click on it to open it to find out whether you're including anything else into it. I hope that answers, Ellen. Philippa, you are very welcome. And, oh, she's taken a photo. Good girl. Well done. All right. So is there any other questions while we're moving around here? I can't see any others. What's the website from Instant Text on to download? Okay, hang on a second. Vitali, it is. There's my instant text again. It's vitali.com. Okay, let's go to another one. When you import an existing glossary from your files, does the layout of how the glossary is written in your file matter? Is there a preferred format or any do's and don'ts? I hope that makes sense. Yes, it does, Ellen. It does make perfect sense. If you've got a glossary that the instant text upload command doesn't like, believe me, it will tell you that it can't do it. But normally, if you've got a word list or an Excel spreadsheet or a notepad, it does like notepad more than any, I have to say. It does like to eat the notepads before it eats anything else. So if you've got a word list and you just want to chuck it into a notepad for ease of upload, it will do it really quickly from a notepad entry. But no, there's no real specific layout. It will automatically say if you've got a list of single words, it will just upload them as single words. If you've got phrases there, it'll upload it as a phrase. But the other thing with the phrases is that it will actually upload each individual word as a single word as well, but that's okay. You can delete them if you want to, but you might want to use them as single words as well, so it doesn't really matter. And thank you, Ellen. Okay. Anything else I've got here? I think I've answered everything. Can't seem to get there. No, I think I've answered all the questions. So I'll just check and see if anyone else's hand is up to want to talk to me before we do anything else. that's about it. Okay, excellent. Oh, hang on. What's the best one for a Mac? Well, I've had a few conflicting reports about what's best for a Mac. I thought it was Firefox, but some people are saying that it doesn't work for them. So I guess the best thing is to actually Google and say what is best text expander for a Mac. There is actually a whole list of top 10 text expanders for a Mac on Google. So I would suggest that you go and have a look at that and see how you go with it. And it really is just testing it to see what suits you. Each one individually is it is a personal choice. Unfortunately, instant text does not work on a Mac. It only works on Windows. So it's just a case of playing around with it. Okay. All right, well, if that's all the questions now, look, if you do think of something else or you want me to show you something else while you're playing with it, then just give me a call, get on live chat, talk to us on the phone or send me an email. Anything that you want to discuss, I'm always available and I'm more than happy to help. Now, I might be a bit scarce over the next few days, but someone in the office will be able to help you, and I will answer any questions on my return. Okay, so I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. So the most important thing is your resources when you're working in the workplace. If you've got a good text expander behind you, you are going to be increasing your productivity and thus increasing your income. So important. So get used to it now while you're studying, and you really will. The time it takes you is annoying sometimes, I do understand. I've done it myself and I've been there, but I can tell you now, once it's established, you will definitely be so glad you did. Okay. All right, that's about it now. Thank you very much for coming. And if you, as I say, got any more questions, just get in touch. We're more than happy to help you. But bye for now.